I really want to start with, I'm a big fan of your work. It's great to talk with you today. And I just want to thank you for making movies.
Oh, what can I say? Thank you so much for that. It's very kind of you.
So first thing is, a few of your films have not been released on 4K physical media. And I'm just curious if there's any plans.
I hope it will be at one point. I have no idea why not, but yeah, it's a great format, and I will be looking into it. Thank you.
I would love it if you would. So one of the things that I really, really enjoyed about the film is the way you were able to weave in real historical events into the narrative of your film. Can you talk about why that was so important to you to mix those things together?
I think, again, doing the research was very important. It was very, you're telling stories about this black child. You're introducing lives, different kind of lives, which are sort of, in general, not sort of seen often in these kind of movies. So there has to be a basis for it, and the research was there. And it wasn't a case of sort of, really kind of digging for it. It was just how London was at that time, as my historical advisor, Jocelyn Levine, who wrote the book Secret History of the Blitz. At that point, London was quite a cosmopolitan city, central London. So it was just one of those things which was very important for me to sort of get the sort of authenticity of that moment to sort of be visualized. It's imperative, in fact.
One of the things, I generally don't talk about VFX only when it's bad, but I really enjoyed the way you used VFX in this with set extensions and some of those establishing shots. Can you talk about some of those establishing shots and showing London in a way that I have not seen?
Well, I think very little. I think that we did one establishing shot, which was when, of course, the aftermath of the night of bombing. We saw the aftermath, and of course, at the end of the picture. I wanted to reuse very little because I wanted to work with myself and Adam Stockhouse, and I wanted to work with real locations or builds, because I think, for an actor, you get such a better experience as an audience member, but a better reaction and a better sort of experience for the actor, because you're dealing with depth and perspective. And I needed to sort of work with it within a certain confines of a reality. So I think they were good because I could spend more time on the ones that we had to do, because there was the few of them, so I could spend more time on them, Often when you got so many, I imagine the quality dips.
So I'm fascinated by the editing process because it's where it all comes together. Can you talk about, who do you trust for, honest feedback when you have your first cut of the movie?
Honest feedback. I think, you have to have a situation where you're working with this, my great editor, Pete, but also it's one of those things where you have to, again, I think you leave it alone for a while and come back to it. That's very important too. I feel when you sort of have a situation where you're so into it, just a case of just walking away from it for a while and then coming back to it, you always see something that you could improve. So I think that is, myself and Pete was one of those things where we sort of walked away from it, and again, have conversations. But I think if you leave things alone for long enough, certain answers will come to you.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I haven't heard that from people, but it's so true when you come back to something. But the problem with a lot of movies is that because of the financing, there's sometimes just no time.
You have to weave that in. You have to make time. You really have to make time for that, because it's such an undertaking. It needs that kind of attention, and it needs that kind of sort of process for you to get the best results, as far as I'm concerned.
When you looked at the shooting schedule, what day did you have circled because you couldn't wait to film something? And was there a date circled where you were like, how the F are we going to film this?
Well, when I was writing it, I thought, well, how are we going to film the flooding of the underground? And again, then I couldn't wait to do the dance sequences because it's so joyous. But what was interesting, both were joyous, both were fantastic, because you can't believe that you've done certain things and you're there. And when you're there, new ideas come about, sort of new circumstances come about. So at first, maybe there's some trepidation because you think, okay, well, how are we going to do that? But when you're in the set, it's like, oh, this is fantastic. So yeah, it's one of those things where, it's always about sort of, my mother always said to take one day at a time. I used to get really frustrated with that, but it is like one of those situations where when you're actually there, it's actually not as bad as you may think, or it's better than you think most of the time, hopefully.
I specifically do want to talk about that underwater tube sequence,
sure,
because it's edge of your seat, so well done. Can you talk about what it was like to film that sequence and the fact that I believe you built a tube station to be able to do that?
Yes, it was myself and Adam Stock. I was the art director, built the tube station, and it was amazing because, again, how do you flood a station? And it was a real engineering feat, and the water and how we replenished the water and so forth, and the extras. You could imagine the sort of chaos or that could have happened, but it was really well organized. And again, it's people walked in the set and couldn't believe it. And yeah, it was one of those things where it was obviously a really important set piece in the film, and we had to get it right. And it was a lot of months and months of planning, and I'm very excited for people to see it. I mean, what's interesting about it is again, I don't want to give the game away at all because in this situation, but it's I don't want to say too much about it. Hopefully people see it.
One of the things that I also really appreciated is it's just a different side of the war. And I don't believe I saw any soldiers in the movie.
Yeah, well, again, this is not, again, you could say that's deliberate, but at the same time, it's about I was more interested in the civilians and what was going on with the people on the ground who had to sort of unfortunately deal with the circumstances of war, rather than people sort of fighting on some field in France in khakis and seeing how many people they could kill, to get victory. It was about the people on the ground having to deal with this, hell that was put upon them.
As I said at the beginning, I am a fan of your work. Do you know what you're doing next in terms of the movie, or like what's coming up for you?
I've got some ideas, but unfortunately I won't be able to share them with you now. But honestly, to goodness, you'll be the first to know.
I don't think I will, but sure.
Steve, you'll be the first to know. Trust me. Okay.
Right. But my last thing for you, because I'm just about out of time. I found it fascinating that you cast Paul Weller and Benjamin Clémentine. I want to make sure I said that right. Who are both musicians, obviously. What is it about musicians that you find like that they would make good actors?
Well, they're truth tellers, aren't they? Both of them write their own songs. Both of them write their own songs, and both of them perform their songs. They're truth tellers. So, that's why I thought that. I mean, again, also the look of both of them and the sensitivity, the sensibility. I thought they could translate in the characters I wanted to, and I'm very, very happy with their performance. I mean, how could I not be?
Oh no, they're both fantastic. I have to stop there. I just want to say congrats on the movie. I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Very kind. Thank you, sir.